Cousins, I was intrigued by the point you were making of how much agency some of the women who have access to the internet now enjoy in terms of making financial decisions. But it's equally true that there is a large bulk of women who are left out of this. The last National Health Family Survey, for example, which is as early as 2019, points out that in a state like Bihar, for example, 4 in 5 women have never used the internet. As somebody who straddles technology so well, what can we do to make this more accessible to women, to make it easy for them to take that first step in terms of even having a conversation about their finances?
Right. So I just, it is a good, you know, problem for a lot of entrepreneurs to solve. So whenever there is an underserved market or customer, I always get excited because it means there are opportunities for great products and businesses to be built here. I'll give an example from Rivigo, which is the company that I co-founded. We were working with truck drivers, and truck drivers in India, we had about 10 to 15,000 truck drivers on our platform, and they came from very rural India. And we were trying to build a tech product for them, and I was designing that product. My guidance to my team was they do not need to know how to build a product, how to use a product. 60%, we ran a survey, and 60% of the truck drivers at that time, 2014, didn't even have a smartphone. They were in places where there were like battery charging issues. Gaon mein there was no electricity, right? There was data issue because they were traveling, and I needed to get data of their location. And on top of that, they never used any apps, right? So through that as a challenge and set those constraints, I was amazed at what my team was able to come up with. One, they built the product to work in an offline mode, right? So you could just communicate through the app, but the app converted the signals into SMS and sent it. So we solved the battery charging internet data issues. Initially it's about knowing your customer, right? If the customer is that, you will have to provide some offline support, right? So for a lot of people building that kind of business, there is a bit of high touch initial sort of hand holding to be done. And once they're on it, then the digital literacy, so to say, kicks in, right? Because a lot of our product was inspired by seeing the apps they were already using. So we were not introducing something new, we were just creating what they were used to seeing, talking in their language, what they are used to communicating in. And I think that's where it's a challenge, but also an opportunity for products to be built in India, which is how do you take these products to women in Bharat? So it's a good problem to solve, and I think it's been done in many areas. It's about people getting focused on this cohort and seeing how um, big and impactful this can be.
Yeah, the unfortunate truth is that every conversation we have now has a post-COVID context to it. I mean, in any case, for women, professional careers or career paths have not been linear. That is the reality of the situation. And it's probably gotten exacerbated post-COVID, where when many women, because of their caregiving responsibilities or their childcare responsibilities, have had to take a break from work. How do you sort of support and advise women who are doing that? They're on a career break, but they're still trying to figure out their own finances. Oftentimes, they may be single women as well who have, children to take care of. What's the best way to think about investment and saving from that context?
Great question, Mitali. For women who are on a career break, I think one of the things that most often happens is there is this whole scare of sitting in a leaky bucket because nothing is coming in, but expenditures haven't stopped. So you're continuously depleting what you've earned or your savings, right? Which builds in this huge resistance to want to invest into anything, which, in my opinion, couldn't be worse. Couldn't be a worse time to take the decision to not invest when you are really sitting at a juncture where you do not have a fixed income source that feeds into your bucket. I think it is women who are on a career break should definitely invest some time into identifying what their financial goals are and then identifying a bouquet of products that make sense for them. because they are the ones who will have the maximum diversity in terms of needs, right? They will need liquidity at the moment because there are regular expenditures to take care of, but they will also need to plan for emergencies, which could be related to family, children, whatever. They will also need to plan for a long-term future. For example, women with children will have to plan for how will they support their children's careers a few years down the line, so on and so forth. So they have the need space that they are in is possibly the most diverse versus all of us. And I think that is where deep financial prudence is mostly required, instead of sort of holding your pennies to yourself and saying, hey, I don't want to invest anywhere because there is nothing coming in. They should focus on figuring out what are those tools who are going to serve each of these needs, and then accordingly hedge their bucket and invest. I think one very important step that women can take, and I think Pinky ma'am hinted towards it, is to identify a financial advisor, an investment advisor. Very often, we as women tend to really put this on the back burner. We don't think it's important enough. We feel personal trainers in gymnasiums are important, personal beauticians are important, but somehow we tend to believe that personal investment advisors are not important. Trust me, they are. And if you have a good one, and it might take some effort to find the right one, but when you have the right person, it's like having a continuous companion who can share the load of financial planning with you, right? They do the research, they give you the right kind of information and enable you really to be able to make a decision and get to your goals. So I think that's one thing. In today's age of technology, you really also don't need to invest a lot of money around that. Enough and more companies, and I'm sure Aditya Birla Capital also, for example, or plenty of other organizations have these supports available for women at either free of cost or at a very, very minimal cost. I think it's very important to identify those and work with them to ensure that your financial independence continues irrespective of the steady stream of salary that was coming up to a point in time.